I had a phone call with a friend on the channel, and he was asking me about the season of the locusts in the Bible. And I asked him, where are you talking about specifically? And he directed me to Revelation 9 when the fifth trumpet blows. And he kept saying the season of the locusts, and I said, I don't know that language of the season of the locusts. I know, and so he said, well, what do you know about this, this trumpet? So I talked with him about, okay, this is when Satan loses his place in the heavenly realms because the witnesses have testified, and now he falls. He's that star that's falling from the sky. He's going down has the key to the shaft of the abyss, goes into the abyss, rises from the abyss to overpower and kill the witnesses, as is written in Revelation 11. And then he said, okay, how about the trumpet? How about that season of the locusts? And he kept using that phrase. And I said, I don't know about a season of the locusts. And even when I talked about a plague. And he says, no, the season of the locusts. So apparently this is a doctrine. I don't know what the heck people are talking about online. I do not know what Bible they're reading. But let's just clear it up. So apparently there's this idea that Jesus had a conversation with the Father and said, well, if you do all these things, no one's going to survive. And so God, the Father agreed to send a plague of locusts. And it had something to do with when the days are shorter, are shortened. Okay, so whoever's drawn up that doctrine doesn't know what they're talking about because their timeline's not even right. We know from the book of Daniel that on the 1290th day, that's when the abomination from the time that the witnesses die, which will be somewhere around 1271 days, because they'll finish their testifying on the 1260th day into the 7-year period. They will be jailed and persecuted and killed within that 10-day period. From the time that they die to the 1290th day, the abomination of desolation is going to be set up. That's the time during which people are going to be required to take the mark of the beast, or worship its image, or die. That is the idol that provokes to jealousy. The abomination that causes desolation is also referred to as the idol that provokes to jealousy. That is why God rises from his dwelling to judge the inhabitants of the earth. So he brings trial and testing, and he goes after the wicked. But God's people, some of the multitude in white robes are still going to be here during that period, and they will be dying during that period until every single one of them is dead. How will they be dying? We know exactly how they'll be dying. They'll be forced to take the mark of the beast, or worship its image, or die. Well, when does the fifth trumpet blow? The fifth trumpet is not blowing during that time. The fifth trumpet, you know very well when the fifth trumpet blows, because that's when the beast rises from the abyss to overpower and kill the witnesses. So you know exactly when that fifth trumpet is happening. It's happening in the midpoint of the 7-year period, when, as it is written in Daniel 12, the sanctuary is thrown down. Who's the sanctuary? Is it some physical temple that's going to be built in Israel? No, we are Israel. We are the temple. And the daily sacrifice is abolished. Are we going to start sacrificing animals again? No. The whole New Testament tells us we are the temple, we are the sacrifices. That is referring to the witnesses. If we would just stay with the word, we might then understand the word instead of going to everybody's commentaries and sermons when they're not even sitting in the council of God. One of the things actually that my friend said is, I'm glad that you're closing up your videos with discern this message with God. That's good. That's right. That gives you credibility. I wish these pastors would do it. And I'm like, these pastors don't even know how to say it because they don't do it themselves. They don't discern. They don't sit in his council, and we know that from the word. The word tells us that very clearly. Let's talk about the locusts. Okay, so we're going to start in Revelation 9, where it talks about that plague that's in question, and then we're going to go to Joel 1. And I'm going to show you why I know that Joel chapter 1 is the same plague that's being talked about in Revelation 9. The fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. What is a star in Revelation? A star is an angel. And this star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. And I'm going to tell you why this star fell from heaven. Because Satan has now been kicked out of the heavenly realms, because the witnesses have testified. That was the second thing that was required in order to triumph over the devil. You see that in Revelation 12. If you don't know it, read it. So the witnesses have testified now. They're still alive, but this star, Satan, has been kicked out of the heavenly realms. cast down to the earth. You need to read Revelation 12 in order to understand what's going on right now. The two things that were required in order to triumph over the devil were 1, the blood of the Lamb, 2, the testimony of the two witnesses. And as it's written in Revelation 12, it says they did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. You don't need to understand that. Some people misinterpret and they think that it's the death of the witnesses that has triumphed over the devil. No, it's the testimony of the witnesses who did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. And so they're able to share their testimony. They're able to speak with bold, unashamed truth, because I can tell you from experience, God has prepared them. They know they're going to die for what they're doing. They also know that they cannot be touched for 1,260 days. They've been built. They know what they're going to suffer. When I tell you that I know that I'm going to die in 2.25 years, or a little over 2 years, I know it for good reason. He has told me what's going to happen. I don't know if that sounds crazy to you, but it's right here in the Bible. It shouldn't, or at least the Bible should confirm that what I'm saying is true. Actually, let's go ahead and read Revelation 12 so that you have a clear picture of what's going on right here in Revelation 9. First of all, in Revelation 7, the 144,000 witnesses, the 2 lampstands, the 2 bodies of believers, the 2 witnesses, the 2 olive trees. These are not 2 men, Elijah and Moses, Moses and Enoch, whatever it is that people say. They don't know what they're talking about. And it's the reason they've been arguing over it for however many years, is because they have not sat in God's counsel, because it is clear who these are. There's no reason to argue over it. Has God not given us a word that he wants us to understand? So if there's any argument over it and it's not clear, it's because that is a clear indication that these people have not stood in the counsel of God. Plain and simple. The 2 witnesses are the 2 lampstands. He tells us at the very beginning of Revelation that the 2 lampstands are the 2 churches, the 2 bodies of believers in these respective areas. Not a church as we know it today, like, oh, what denomination is that? That's not his church. Those are churches of men. Those are churches of men's doctrines, a branding. It's counterfeit Christianity. What he's saying in Revelation 1, 2, and 3 is that the churches, he has a message for these bodies of believers, the church in Smyrna. So the church, the believers, my believers in Smyrna, Philadelphia, Ephesus, etc. That's all he's saying. He addresses 7 of his believers, 7 bodies of his believers, 7 assemblies of the church in these respective areas, and only 2 of them, only 2 of the lampstands are fulfilling the covenant. Only 2 of them is he pleased with. The rest of them, he warns. And he says, if you don't get it together, you're going to lose your lampstand. You're going to lose the purpose for which I set you apart. I've been building you for something, and you're about to lose it. So the 144,000 have been sealed before what? Before what? What does it say in Revelation 7? It says before the first 4 trumpets blow. Before the first 4 angels start harming the land. You're the land, by the way. It's very clear that you're the land, because in Ezekiel chapter 9, he tells the man with the writing kit at his side to go through Jerusalem and to mark or seal all those grieving and lamenting the detestable things that are being done in Jerusalem. And they're being marked or sealed before the first 6 trumpets blow. Why the first 6 trumpets? Because the multitude in white robes will be here for the first 6 trumpets. The witnesses will only be here for the first 4. They get killed at the 5th. And then he says, go throughout the town and kill without showing mercy. Begin at my sanctuary. So if you had any question as to what's going on in the trumpets, that's exactly what's going on. The wheat is being separated from the tares. That's what's going on. That's what happens in trumpets 1 through 4. By 5, he's only harming those who do not have the seal. And you see a different kind of language being used. In 1 through 4, a third of the land are being harmed. They're being weeded out. Revelation 12 says, verse 9, the dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled down to the earth and his angels with him. Yeah, you were told that happened at the beginning of time when he tried to rush God's throne. Where's that in the Bible? Not here. It doesn't happen until the witnesses have shared their testimony. It doesn't happen until the end, until the middle of that 7-year period. That story about him rushing God's throne is not in the Bible. He may have been kicked out of God's heaven, the third heaven, but he hasn't been kicked out of the heavenly realms yet until the witnesses finish their testifying. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, "Now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters who accuses them before our God day and night has been hurled down." They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb, number 1, and by the word of their testimony, number 2. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He's filled with fury because he knows his time is short. That is the Antichrist reign. When the dragon saw he'd been hurled to the earth, he pursued the woman is the church, who had given birth to the male child is Christ. The woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness, where she would be taken care of for a time, times, and half a time out of the serpent's reach. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and sweep her away with the torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and hold fast to their testimony about Jesus. Okay, that's what's going on right here in Revelation 9. The 5th angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. He has lost his place in the heavenly realms. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like the smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and the sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss, and out of the smoke locusts came down on the earth. Okay, before we go there, let me show you where this is. So this star has fallen from the sky. He's been given the key to the shaft of the abyss. You need a picture of this in your head, because a lot of times you read it and you tune out and you don't even have a picture of what's going on. Fallen from the sky, given the key to the shaft of the abyss. He goes into the abyss, and then he's rising now out of the abyss. The door has opened. The smoke is darkening everything. He is rising from the abyss. Now let's go to Revelation 11, verse 7. Now, when they have finished their testimony, we're talking about the witnesses, the beast that comes up from the abyss will attack them and overpower and kill them. Their bodies will lie in the public square of the great city, which is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. For 3.5 days. Some from every people, tribe, language, and nation will gaze on their bodies and refuse them burial. The inhabitants of the earth will gloat over them and will celebrate by sending each other gifts, because these 2 prophets had tormented those who live on the earth. That's what we're looking at here. Yes, the word says these 2 prophets as though there's 2 people. The word also says that these are the 2 lampstands and the 2 olive trees. The 2 lampstands and the 2 olive trees are bodies of believers. They are not 2 individuals. All right, so now we know what's happening in Revelation 9. Now let's go to the plague. And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months. And the agony they suffered was like that of the sting of a scorpion when it strikes. During those days, people will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them. This is a plague. This is not a season. It's not a year. This is a plague. I'm going to show you how I know that. Verse 7. The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads, they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. They had tails with stingers like scorpions, and in their tails they had power to torment people for 5 months. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon, that is, destroyer. The first woe is past, the other 2 woes are yet to come. The 6th angel sounded his trumpets. By the way, the woes are only for the wicked, okay? That's it. God will pass over, but are his people still here? Yeah, his people are still here. No pre-trib rapture, his people are still here. The 6th angel sounded his trumpet, and I heard a voice coming from the 4 horns of the golden altar that is before God. It said to the 6th angel who had the trumpet, "Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." And the 4 angels who had been kept ready for this very hour and day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. Don't mistake this with the bowls of wrath. It is not the same thing. The number of the mounted troops was twice 10,000 times 10,000. I heard their number. The horses and riders I saw in my vision looked like this. Their breastplates were fiery dark. fiery red, dark blue, and yellow as sulfur. The heads of the horses resembled the heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and sulfur. A third of mankind was killed by the 3 plagues of fire, smoke, and sulfur that came out of their mouths. The power of the horses was in their mouths and in their tails, for their tails were like snakes, having heads with which they inflict injury. So now it's saying a third of mankind. It's not talking about land anymore. You guys have been described as land. The church has been described as land. That's the language that was used 1 through 4. The rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues, all the plagues that were described here, okay? Not just the plagues in trumpet number 6, all of the plagues, that's what it's referring to. Nothing in the original text was separated into verses and chapters. He starts talking about plagues. He's talking about plagues. The rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the work of their hands. They did not stop worshiping demons and idols of gold, silver, bronze, wood, stone, and wood, idols that cannot see, hear, or walk, nor did they repent of their murders, their magic arts, their sexual immorality, or their thefts. All of these are plagues. They're described as plagues in the word. They are not described as a season or a year of locusts. It is an outright plague. That's what the word says. I don't know where that other doctrine is coming from. One thing that you need to know is that after this point, the rest of mankind, okay? So this is the 5th and 6th trumpets. The rest of mankind do not repent. The rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the work of their hands. So you need to understand that you have to be harvested in within the next 2 and a little over 2 years. You have to be living out your covenant or you're not going to make it, period. So if you're being called in right now, and I hear people tell me all the time that they're being called right now, but just because you're being called does not mean that you're going to remain. Don't take for granted that God is speaking to you right now. Paul gave you this same warning. If you hear his voice, don't harden your heart like our ancestors did in the rebellion, because his voice is not a guarantee for you. Him speaking to you doesn't even mean anything about you. It means everything about him. It means that he's giving you an opportunity. So if you ignore his voice and you go and you make decisions based on some false assurance that he will continue with you until the day he comes, you will not make it, because no one repents after this, which means you don't have up until the last hour, period, because the word of God is true and it will be fulfilled. You won't change the story. You will not change the scroll just because you have some delusion that came from counterfeit Christianity that you can wait till the last minute to repent. Nope. That's not what's written in the word. Now, I told you that I was going to show you in Joel 1 that these are the same locusts that are in Revelation 9. Same description. You remember that they had teeth like lion's teeth, and their hair was like women's hair. They had breastplates of iron. You end up hearing the same description, or at least pieces of that same description in Joel 1. So now let's see what other information we can use to understand this picture of what God is doing. Joel 1, the word of the Lord came to Joel, son of Pethuel. Hear this, you elders. Listen, all who live in the land. Has anything like this ever happened in your days or in the days of your ancestors? Tell it to your children, and let your children tell it to their children, and their children to the next generation. What the locust swarm has left, the great locusts have eaten. What the great locusts have left, the young locusts have eaten. What the young locusts have left, other locusts have eaten. Wake up, you drunkards, and weep. Wail, all you drinkers of wine. Wail because of the new wine, for it has been snatched from your lips. All right, what's he talking about? Why is he calling them drunkards? Why is he telling them to weep? Why is he talking about new wine and old, why is he talking like this? Well, he talks like this throughout the word. He talks about Ephraim's drunkards who are drunk on false doctrine. And is he talking about locusts who've eaten their crops? Because he described a plague in Revelation. Well, let's see what else he has to say. A nation has invaded my land, a mighty army without number. It has the teeth of a lion, the fangs of a lioness. It has laid waste my vines and ruined my fig trees. It has stripped off their bark and thrown it away, leaving their branches white. Talking about counterfeit Christianity, right? Those who were supposed to be his. Mourn like a virgin in sackcloth, grieving for the betrothed of her youth. Grain offerings and drink offerings are cut off from the house of the Lord. The priests are in mourning, those who minister before the Lord. The fields are ruined. The ground is dried up, the grain is destroyed, the new wine is dried up, the olive oil fails. Is he talking about fields, or are you a field? You're a field. So he's talking about the fields. What does he tell the workers to do? What did he tell the apostles to do? The harvest is white. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send workers into the field. Despair, you farmers. Wail, you vine growers. Grieve for the wheat and the barley, because the harvest of the field is destroyed. The vine is dried up, and the fig tree is withered. The pomegranate, the palm, and the apple tree, all the trees of the field are dried up. Surely the people's joy is withered away. Put on sackcloth, you priests, and mourn. Wail, you who minister before the altar. Come, spend the night in sackcloth, you who minister before my God. For the grain offerings and drink offerings are withheld from the house of your God. Declare a holy fast. Call a sacred assembly. Summon the elders and all who live in the land to the house of the Lord your God, and cry out to the Lord. Alas, for that day, for the day of the Lord is near. It will come like destruction from the Almighty. Has not the food been cut off before your very eyes? Joy and gladness from the house of our God. The seeds are shriveled beneath the clods. The storehouses are in ruins. The granaries have been broken down, for the grain is dried up. How the cattle moan, the herds mill about, because they have no pasture. Even the flocks of sheep are suffering. I don't believe that he's talking about real cattle or real sheep. The way I understand this is he's talking about those herds of cattle and sheep that they were supposed to shepherd. To you, Lord, I call, for fire has devoured the pastures in the wilderness, and flames have burned up all the trees of the field. Even the wild animals pant for you. The streams of water has dried up, and fire has devoured the pastures in the wilderness. So you're seeing desolation that really is not describing what locusts have done to physical crops, right? But if we are crops, and I tell you this all the time, is God going forward or is he going backward in his word? Is he going to return to something that he previously established in order to teach us the spiritual significance of something? Is that what he's going to do at the end of the word? He's going to go return to that? No. It doesn't negate what he has established, but the fulfillment of what he has established is what is most important. So again, I don't know what the season of locusts is. That wording is not used in the word. It sounds like wording that someone has coined, like a phrase that someone has coined. You know, they love to do that in counterfeit Christianity in order to make a name for themselves, but it's not correct. And the problem with that is that now you got to go to so-and-so's doctrine and funnel everything through their doctrine in order to understand the word. No, you go to the word. You go to the word and understand the word from the word. Anyone who is shepherding you to God is going to use the language and concepts that God has established. They're not going to try to make a name for themselves and brand themselves and coin terms for their own glory. That creates a stumbling block to others to be able to look this up for themselves in the word. It's part of the reason why that heinous rapture doctrine is so popular, because no one can find it in the word. But you know what? When you don't love truth and you speak on the authority of some human being instead of the authority of the actual word, you're demonstrating that you don't love truth. So when people are saying rapture, and then they're saying, well, they make you go through this whole detour. Well, rapture is the word raptura, the Latin word raptura. Oh, really? Where did Latin come from? Because the Bible I'm reading was written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. Oh, and then, raptura means the same thing as harpazo. Whatever. I mean, really? First resurrection is used 52 times in the word. How about use that? Because harpazo is not used that many times, and it's only used to describe an aspect of the first resurrection. You want to know about the first resurrection? How about use that language, and then you can look it up in the word. All right, the word defines it as a plague. That's what's going on with the locusts. That's what's going on with the sixth trumpet as well. God's people are going to be here, but if you have the seal of God, you will be passed over as far as this is concerned. Technically, these people don't have the mark of the beast yet. That won't be introduced, as I understand it, until the abomination of desolation is set up at the very end of the Antichrist reign. Some of these people are going to die before the mark of the beast is introduced. So it is possible that many people during this time will end up receiving an opportunity in the second resurrection. It's also possible they won't. Why even take that chance? One thing we know for sure is when they receive the mark of the beast, there will be no opportunity for them to be saved. Not even as one escaping the flames. They will go directly into the flames when Christ returns. Anybody who receives the mark of the beast has marked themselves as belonging to the beast. And so when the word says the beast is thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, that means them. I hope this helped to clear things up. Again, if this is a thing, you find it in the word, please let me know. I'd like to know. As far as I'm concerned, it's not terminology that I've ever seen in the word. That story about Jesus having a conversation with the Father and saying everyone's going to die if you don't shorten the days or whatever, like, that's not in the word. I don't see that either. In fact, I don't ever see Jesus telling the Father how he should adjust his plan. So, that raises a red flag for me. I don't ever see Jesus doing that. I only see him respecting and following and executing the Father's plan. Please discern this message with God.